What makes us creative? Is it restlessness? Vanity? Optimism? What does it take to be truly creative? It's a combination of curiosity, originality, imagination, determination, and empathy. Creativity is an unstoppable force, where intellect meets emotion, art meets science, head meets heart. It's our ability to tap into the knowledge, wisdom, information, and inspiration, and all of the fragments that populate our minds. Creativity is the ability to see relationships where none exist. Real creativity is right in front of us.
Folks, welcome to the power of creativity. Now you're probably wondering right now what today is all about, and I promise I'm going to cover it off for you. But before I do, I want to hit two quick things. Firstly, for those that don't know, I'm Simon and I'm the CEO here at Ceros. As for where we are, we're actually in the Manhattan offices in New York City. And when I say offices, I really mean home, because to myself and the team here at Ceros, this really was home. A home we decided to leave 6 or 7 months ago, much like all of you. And since that point, 6 months ago, a lot has happened, both in the world, in our businesses, and in our personal lives. It's been a really interesting and difficult time for everybody. And I think it would be wrong, as we kick off today, to not stop just for a second and look back at all that we've been through.
Let's be honest. Brutally honest. It's been hard. We've been confused, angry, sad, confined, like creatures in captivity, distant from the things and the people we love. We felt boxed in and stressed out. But as the pressure grew and the walls got tighter, we realized something. This virus couldn't rob us of what makes us human. Hope, compassion, creativity. They're in us, all of us. And with that realization, we moved forward. We rewrote the rules. We adapted. As we opened our minds and pushed the boundaries, we were reminded that hope and creativity is everywhere. In adversity, we found strength. In constraint, we found opportunity. We found a way to connect, to survive and to thrive. And we remember that the future is not decided. It is not written. It's ours. Ours to shape and mold and create. Any way we choose.
That's what today is about. It's a recognition of the power of creativity. And then, of course, it's a celebration of how it can impact what you do in your lives, personally, and in your careers. And Ceros has a part to play in that, a small piece to play, to inspire, to educate, and hopefully to empower. Before I get started though, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to everybody that's taken the time to spend an hour with us today. And I think it's worth noting that everybody that's here today is what we would consider among the creatively curious. All of you that are dialed in today and watching this have come here because of that creative spark in you that wants to understand more, learn more, and explore more. And that really is the seeds of that creative mind. So I think there's a celebration there and I appreciate it. And if you're a Ceros customer, good to see you again. And if you're someone who's thinking about being a customer, come on in. And of course, if you're just here to learn, I really hope we can provide you with some value too. So let's kick off with a little chat specifically about the power of creativity. Now, the topic of creativity is a personal one to me. And it's personal to me because as a child growing up, I was not a particularly academic person and I didn't do very well in school. I left school very early. And for me, what was interesting or was really impactful was the fact that being creative and thinking creatively was a way for me to impact the world without necessarily being the best academic student. And it's also personal to me because being creative and the creative process is in some regards therapy for me. I enjoy it. It's a way for me to express myself and de-stress. So talking about this is genuinely something that means something to me, and I'm hoping that I can share some of that with you today. And the first thing I want to cover, which I think is key, is a common misconception around the word creativity and what it actually means. Now, it's commonly believed that it's reserved for the artists of the world, the musicians of this world. And as a result, a lot of people that have creative potential, steer away from it, if you will, and consider it not to be something that they can take part in. That is a fallacy, and you should wipe it from your mind. Now, it's obviously true that if you're a musician or an artist, you need to be creative in your job. It's a prerequisite, if you will, graphic designers, interior designers. But it doesn't mean that you can't be creative in work outside of those fields. And that's probably best interpreted or understood if you really look at what the word means. And in simple terms, essentially means the ability to transcend traditional ideas and rules, breaking up all the old paradigms and thinking about things in new ways that haven't been thought of before. And once you understand that, you can realize, yes, that makes sense for musicians and artists, but actually in your life it can make sense. It could be as simple as, I need to get across the country to be with my children, the planes are not flying, and my car is not working. I have to get creative about how I get there. Just thinking of different ways to solve existing problems that aren't the normal patterns. So that's the first thing. It means a lot to me. And I think there's a lot of people that are watching that can relate to this beyond the artists and the designers that may be watching this too. The next thing I want to do is cover off what I think to be the 4 pillars of creating the right environment to produce creative output. And the first one is that you have to see the world a little differently than others might see it. And you also need to want to shape and mold the world. So you need to see things around you, see things a little differently and ask why it can't be some other way, and you have a desire to change it. The next one is about connections. So point number 2 is about making connections where others don't see connections. And it's connecting those dots that others wouldn't see. And the interesting thing about that is that's often easier to do when you're not a professional in the field that you're curious about, because the professionals typically follow the rules and the patterns that they have for many years. So that's number 2. Number 3 is about being courageous enough and brave enough to actually take action. And that's a tricky one, because if you have an idea about changing the world and you think about ways to do it that haven't been thought of before, being brave enough and courageous enough to actually take action can be scary. And then the 4th one, which is almost like a turbocharger, it's a feedback loop, the flywheel, if you will. And that's about getting joy and satisfaction from the thing that you create and how that impacts others and, of course, yourself. And if you get that joy and you feel that excitement from doing something, creating something that you brought into the world, that's going to feed back and make the whole process more exciting, which is going to lead to you looking for other things in the world to change, which is going to cause you to take action and ultimately be brave enough to act upon it, because the results and what it does for other people and yourself are so impactful. Another key ingredient in that recipe, if you have these 4 ingredients baked in, is something people misunderstand, and that is that adversity and, in fact, constraint are essentially the birthplace of creative output. There's a very common phrase that you've probably heard, and that's that necessity is the mother of all invention. It's the need to take action that produces the output or the innovation or the creation. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is a little softer. It's about feelings. Now, why might you ask, am I speaking about feelings in a business talk? And the answer for that is, well, firstly, we're humans, so we all have feelings. But secondly, there's a sort of an understanding in the world that or a belief in the world that there are good feelings and bad feelings. That is absolutely false. There are just feelings, and they're all valid, every single one of them. And I've told my team this in the last 6 or 7 months, that it's okay to feel sadness and sorrow and anxiety and uncertainty and fear. They're really natural in the environment that we find ourselves in, and you should connect with them and let them move on. But it's also completely normal and valid to feel hope and inspiration and optimism and, dare I say it, love. And those types of feelings can all coexist and come and go throughout your life. And the reason that is important is because the best creative outputs are felt. You feel the urge to do something. You don't plan it. You don't write it down in a structured, mathematician-like way. You feel it and then you take action. So feeling the feelings that you feel right now and connecting with them in any area of your life is going to spur you on to be more creative. The sort of summary of that is, as I said, the adversity and constraint that we are experiencing right now is the very birthplace of creativity. So before I move on from that kind of conclusion that creativity is coming from that place, I want to pause for a second and just go back to those 4 pillars. Because I think the third pillar, the one around courageous bravery to take action, is the one that most people fall over on frequently. And that's natural, because I have an idea, it's different to what everybody else perceives to be the right decision or the right action. And to step forward and do that different thing is a risk. My colleagues might not like it, my friends might not like it might not work, I might fail. And that is a really, really important piece. And I want to help people understand that one of the things you can use as a tool to get over that is to stop for a second and realize that the idea that you have doesn't need to be fully formed before you take action. And as a result of that, it's easier to make a move towards it. So if you think of this as a really simple analogy, if you think of Martin Luther King, he famously once said, as we all know, I have a dream. He didn't say, I have a plan. And in reality, at that moment, he probably didn't. But what happened was his belief in that and his brave, courageous effort to step forward with the movement that he began slowly unfolded and brought about some pretty amazing changes in this country. So the point I'm making really is that if you have an idea and you feel that you want to reach out and change the world and make a difference, instead of pausing and thinking, well, I can't until I have a full plan, take a step and move in that direction. And that might be a doodle or a sketch or a line or a paragraph or a blog post or a video recording or a story to a friend. Take some action, because the next day that doodle gets turned into a logo, which gets turned into a business card, which gets turned into a discussion with a friend, which gets turned into a company. And what you can end up with, if you look at companies like Apple, is you go from a garage selling computers to your school friends to an investor to a large manufacturer and creator of computers to a business that fundamentally changed the world as we know it in Apple. And trust me, there is no way on earth that Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs knew that they would change the world, invent the iPhone, and become $1 trillion company. They might have hoped for it, but they didn't know the plan to get there. So the point really is, if you feel scared and you don't know how to move forward, take a small action, anything. Let that creative energy out and move forward. So we've established, or at least I've attempted to establish, that creativity matters. It's an important part of what we do, and it's an incredibly important part in the way or the world that we find ourselves right now. What I want to do now is attempt as best I can to connect that with Ceros. Now, one way for me to connect that to Ceros is simple. Creativity matters is the why of Ceros. It's been our why, not what we do, it's why we get up in the morning. That's been the case. We believe that creativity matters, and that's been in our DNA for the best part of 10 years. But at Ceros, we always talk to our customers and the folks that are interested in what we're doing that we believe experience matters. And the reason we say that is because digital experiences are as important as physical experiences, and all of your experience will ultimately form the feelings that you have, and feelings affect the decisions that you make, and humans make decisions based on those feelings. With the physical world and the digital world so polarized, because COVID is clearly shut down both metaphorically and literally the physical world, everybody is targeting the digital world. And the point I'm making, which is a simple one in my opinion, is if we bridge that gap between those two worlds, you can ultimately end up in a position where the digital experience can be as emotionally impactful and as creative as the physical one. And that's why creativity is an important part of crafting the digital experiences. Think about the outputs that you create. Why do you create that digital experience? What does this PDF mean to me? Why am I creating it? In the same way you would if you were opening a restaurant or launching a large event in a physical world. And Ceros is in that business. We've been in that business for the best part of 10 years. And it's our hope that we can inspire you and educate you and empower you to create better digital experiences.
Well, growing up for me, especially seeing creative at a young age, I had the benefit of having a dad that was an architect. So my dad, I have very clear memories of him sitting at a draft board. He wasn't working in AutoCAD at the time, kind of hunched over on a large draft board, with large architectural drawings, and those really burned in me. And his idea of bonding at a young age was, sitting down, drawing on napkins, kind of showing me what I guess I would call now a continuous line aesthetic.
See, a lot of us creative folk were born rambunctious, with a lot of energy, a lot of things to say, flying off the walls with something to create.
So I came from a very staunchly immigrant family, which anyone, no matter what race or ethnicity you are, everyone who has immigrant parents in some way, shape, or form knows how that informs their worldview. There's kind of a few things that you could do. Be a lawyer, be an engineer, be a doctor. And here you have this wild child kid who all she does is love reading the Boxcar Children and making up stories and all of these other things.
It really allowed me to want to think about creative on a deeper level once I wanted to take it seriously.
My mom was one of those parents in the 90s who was anti-television. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Crooklyn by Spike Lee, but there's Alfre Woodard plays the mom, and the mom called the television an idiot box, and my mom just saw that movie, took it to heart, and it shaped my entire childhood. So I wasn't allowed to watch TV. I was only allowed to watch TV on the weekends for one Saturday morning and on Tuesday nights for Moesha. That's it.
My community feared my outbursts, and they put horse tranquilizing ADHD medicine on me at the age of 5. Ruined my periphery, took away my creative ability. I didn't dream until I was 21 years old.
When I think about what my life would be if I was working at some big finance company, I just can't even conceive of it really. But I had majored in that, and then I switched my major I had taken, because in business school, you have to take every single discipline within business. I took a marketing class, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can write, I can be really imaginative and creative, but also I can get a job when I get out of this place.
He instilled in me kind of that framework, also made it safe to be creative, and he also allowed me, provided possibilities of risk in creativity in those early days through the content that I was watching. It wasn't always safe for work content. He was kind of letting me watch stuff like like Clerks or Kids even, kind of on the riskier side, especially in the mid to late 90s when I was, kind of growing up. But that said, it really allowed me to want to think about creative on a deeper level once I wanted to take it seriously.
Is creativity something you can develop over time or something that you're born with? It's probably a mixed answer.
It's kind of the difference between, sort of the people who are considered geniuses or the people who have taste. There is something a little bit innate to that. But I do think that there's also, on the other hand, something to being able to nurture that in yourself, right?
For me, what is really interesting right now, specifically right now, is the democratization of creativity.
Creativity lies in all of us, but through nurture, through development of habits, we have to learn how to access that.
I think adults, one of the things that gets beaten out of them as they go through life by their parents, by teachers, by any adult who is just, miserable and want to project a lot of things onto children, they start kind of confining you to these ways of thinking very, very early on, and you get kind of indoctrinated into this system where your imagination is sort of limited. The possibilities are somehow limited. Like, the best thing about children is that they ask so many questions. They are endlessly curious because they are seeing these things for the first time. Have you ever seen like a baby look at their hand and wondering like, oh, these things move, And they don't have the same sense of, well, this needs to move this way or this needs to move that way as we as adults do.
So like everywhere with social media, in media itself, and also just within our own personal spaces and literally everywhere that we look right now, we see creativity that's either done by an individual, a team, or or something, everything in between. And that's fascinating to me. I was trained as an illustrator, very classically trained, and then I had to gain skills within design, animation, direction, leadership. That's stuff that's learned.
Well, I found that a cheat code to creativity is gratitude. It's empathy. It's compassion. It's connection. Half the reason why people stop being creative or don't take that first step from 0 to 1 along the road of creativity is a fear of saying something wrong or coming up with some stupid idea. But the thing about life, if you're in a relationship with people where you have the comfort and the safety to speak freely with new innovative ideas, there's no wrong answer.
Well, the way that I find the courage to do different things, to challenge the status quo and be creative in ways that people haven't seen before is really, I stop caring about how people perceive me because it's not necessarily something that I can control.
I think courage and risk are something I think about a lot. I think about courage and risk when it comes to my own personal creativity. I think about that also when it comes to leadership of creatives and talking with stakeholders in my community as also in my day-to-day job.
See, history is our greatest teacher and we'd be fools to ignore it. My own history has proven that I can be creative in my past. If I give thanks to that and relive the positive memory associated with a creative moment from my past, that'll give me the self-efficacy and the self-confidence to do it again.
But when you're scared though, I will say, when you are terrified, that's when you know magic is about to happen. The things that don't scare the crap out of you, the things that don't make you shake in your boots and don't really give you that feeling in the pit of your stomach like, oh my goodness, something is moving, something is completely shifting. Those are the things that are boring, that are passé, that have been done before. The truly creative, truly inspiring things are the things that scare the crap out of you.
What advice would I give someone looking to be more creative in their daily life? Take a piece of paper. Not your phone, not your computer. Go sit in a room and write down your 10 stupidest ideas.
Taking risks over time and then catching a solid amount of wins. So then as it's kind of, playing the numbers, or, I do think about it within a sports metaphor of if you average a good amount of wins, then, advanced metrics would show that that type of risk produces success. So then you can keep going, right?
I especially tell younger people, I'm still young, but younger people, that you have to approach it that way, because a lot of people are so disillusioned when they get into the workplace and they're thinking they should be doing all this cool stuff from the moment they get in the door. And sometimes that's the case. Oftentimes, as we all know, it's not. So I think that it's important to remember that you can get creativity, you can inspire yourself anywhere if you come at it with this playful energy, if you have fun, if you think about new ways to imagine whatever responsibility you're given. That is where you're nurturing your creativity for the next thing down the road.
So creativity is not taking the road that everybody's taking, because then we'll just do the same thing over and over again. It's doing the polar opposite. Taking the hard road, staring fear in the face, and figuring out a way to get through it.
I always ask questions. Even I was, 22 years old, super green, had no idea what I was doing, but there was never an opportunity that I didn't take to ask the question and ask them, my superiors, how can I do this better? How can I help you do this better? And that was something, it was a muscle, like going back to that idea of practice. I just built it and over and over and over and over again, and it increased in scope and responsibility as I moved through my career, and it served me.
For the casual creative that just wants to make stuff for themselves, the tools are out there. And if you want to take that next really bigger step, it's a choice. And it's a series of decisions and a series of choices. So I would just encourage you to make the choice. So, starting and finishing, I'm a finisher.
How has creativity helped me during this COVID era?
Every turn has been something, creative, has been creatively driven. I mean, we as an organization had to pivot very quickly, figure out how we were going to sustain our business while everything around us, all of the clients that we depended on, everything became so unstable. It's like, well, how do we get people excited? How do we get people motivated? And I was one of the first ones out of the gate doing these webinars, doing all of these like really interesting sort of storytelling around how visuals and our vocabulary is shifting instantly from from the effects of COVID.
What we've learned in the pandemic is that a lot of people are more creative than we realize, because a lot of people are doing a lot of things at home on a small scale with wide reach. So that's a great example.
March of 2020. The whole world's going down into lockdown. I again felt four things: lonely, unfulfilled, disconnected, insecure. Food, community was ripped away from me because of physical and social distancing. So what are we gonna do? Bring the product online and figure it out.
The thing that keeps me going is knowing that there is a logical end and I have to get to the end. And if it's a personal journey, I'm gonna do it. It's actually a little bit easier because then I can kind of navigate, be more nimble in the space, right?
Creativity to me means that you are always thinking of how to solve something for 50 years from now, 100 years from now. You're always thinking of not right now in this moment, but what does my life, what does someone else's life, what does something need to look like tomorrow? Creativity
on a certain scale is something that not everyone really wants to do, because that comes with pressure, right? And also stakes, which if you want that, that's cool, but if you don't want that, you can still definitely be creative.
It's right here. That's art. It's history. It's creativity with my own two hands. And if I don't use my hands to either surf or pull a motorcycle throttle, or play with food, or pull a lever around the dinner table, I'm unfulfilled. That's my creative expression right here.
Okay, I finally get to tell you about Release 7. Now, this is the most powerful release in our history, and it's also the most creative. And we've been working on it for almost 18 months. Some of the features and the functions we're bringing to you have been real epic undertaking. Super exciting. And of course, remembering the theme of today, the power of creativity, and Ceros's mission to help unlock that creativity, I want to tell you about the 4 areas of focus for Release 7. Naturally, it's going to be more creative. It's also more efficient, more connected, and importantly, more accessible. So let me tell you how. Kicking off with object states. It's going to make the platform way more creative and give you a lot more flexibility. But at the same time, it's also going to make it much more efficient. And it unlocks infinite possibilities in terms of the creative output that you can create. And that all comes, as you can see here, through the control that you'll have over any objects on the canvas, its design elements, and importantly, the way it transitions between them. I can't wait for you to get your hands on it because it's going to feel like we've added thousands of different permutations and opportunities for animations and interactions. And when you combine object states and the control of the design of each object with the ability to target that object, that opens up all kinds of functionality for things that may appear and feel more like games or interactive quizzes. It really is an interesting addition to the existing tools you have in your suite. And I want to reiterate what I said earlier. The efficiency piece of this is huge. There are now going to be things that would often take you 1 hour or 4 hours that are going to turn into 10 minutes or 5 minutes. And that's not an exaggeration. Genuinely, there are operations and functions that you will go through that are going to feel like you're in a different universe when you're using object states. I'm really excited to see how you guys leverage it, because I, for one, can't put the thing down. Okay, next, masking. This one's been a long time coming, and it gives you the functionality that you see on the tin. Now you can bring your images directly into the studio and not have to leave and return to Photoshop to add masks and shapes to contain those images. In addition to that, down the line, in the next few releases, you're going to see us unlock the potential of animation within those masks and for the animation of the masks themselves. And as you can see here in a little sneak peek of that, it really does unlock some really interesting combinations and visual effects. Super cool. Okay, bring to front. This is a new type of interaction. Simply put, it gives you the ability to reach into the canvas, select an object, and immediately access where it is in the Z-axis in your layers panel. And that could be super helpful on simple things like image galleries, or as you see here, a map. It's really quite simple, but very, very helpful in some of those everyday tasks that you're doing, and of course, will probably spark some creative output. All right, now I want to touch on image control. Now, we've been working on bringing more image control into the Ceros Studio for the last 2 years. And you'll have seen that come through in things like remove background, which leverages artificial intelligence to instantaneously, at the click of a button, remove the background of any image. And as you can see here, it handles those tricky backgrounds and foregrounds really quite elegantly. It's a complex thing, and we're super glad it's now in the studio. In addition to that, you've got cropping. Cropping's been a long time coming too, and actually a lot of folks are not even aware it's there, so I want to highlight it again to make sure that you're able to use it, because it does make you more efficient. And finally, I want to highlight one more that we brought to you recently, and that's blending modes. Now, blending modes in isolation has been in Photoshop for many years, but in Ceros, because of the multiple dimensions, you're able to combine them with animations to create really interesting and curious artistic effects. So that's blending modes, cropping, and of course, remove background. There's lots more coming down the line in the coming months, and I hope that the image control that we're bringing to you is helpful in everything you're doing on a daily basis. Okay, next up, personal favorite of mine, copy and paste. Anything. Now, you've been able to copy and paste between Ceros experiences for years. But now, we're giving you the ability to reach into the desktop applications that you're using in your creative workflow and grab objects and simply Command-C and Command-V straight into the studio directly from desktop to cloud in a split second. And it works with Illustrator, Photoshop, PowerPoint, and even Keynote. It's literally changed the game for me. I can't use it enough. It's so helpful. So that's copy and paste. But connecting Ceros to the rest of your creative ecosystem is an important part of our strategy going forward. So we didn't stop there. This next one is an industry first. Nobody else has done what we're about to show you. Introducing import. Yes, you can now import Illustrator, Photoshop, and even sketch files directly into the Ceros Studio using just a simple drag and drop. And as you can see here, it's just a matter of seconds or minutes And that file is turned into a Ceros experience as if by magic. It is incredible. And as I say, it's a world first. The speed and efficiency that comes from this is tremendous for obvious reasons, and it gives you the chance to spend less time building and less time assembling so you can focus on the creative output. So that's Import, one of the coolest things we've done in years. I love it. I also want to just say a quick thank you to our friends over at Avocode that made that possible. They've been tremendously good partners and we've really enjoyed working with them, and we really couldn't have got it there as quick as we have without their help. All right, next up, access control and accessibility. Now, we like to think of these two things together, but really they're focused in two main areas. Access control is about giving you and your teams the ability to create roles and give those roles permissions. And that's going to mean you can bring more people from your organization into the Ceros workflow so they can collaborate and work with you. So think of it through the lens of giving an individual user just the right to preview an experience rather than access it. Or, for example, giving someone in your organization just the limited control to see the analytics in the platform. It's a very, very cool part of our strategy to improve the enterprise nature of the platform as we expand into bigger organizations. On that note, we know that accessibility and making Ceros content accessible to as many people as possible is a very important priority for a lot of enterprises. With this release, we are massively enhancing the control you have over those very things. And what that means is control over things like defining the content hierarchy in non-visual ways. It also means the advanced tagging of visual and interactive elements. It's a really important part. In addition, it makes your Ceros content accessible to screen readers. And as a bonus, the work that we've been doing on this front has major benefits from an SEO point of view. So for those of you that are out there wondering if we're going to make advancements in that area, you get that for free with all the work we've been doing around accessibility. It's a real win-win. So that's Release 7. I'm personally super excited about it, and I know I speak on behalf of the whole of Ceros when I say that we're all excited to see what you create with it.
Release 7 is so efficient, and it's very connected, and also accessible, and it's definitely creative. Oh yeah, and very, very powerful. In fact, Ceros is the world's only design platform that converts Photoshop, Illustrator, and Sketch files to web-ready HTML5 in seconds. It's just that easy. So fast. Be inspired. Get educated. Feel empowered. You know you want it. Can't say I blame you. Ceros Release 7. Available now.
Before we move on, one more thing that I want to cover. I want to take a second to just talk about our most recent product launch, Markup. Now, Markup is an entirely free tool, and it's Ceros' latest move in terms of collaboration and workflow. Here to tell you more about it is Alex.
Hey everyone. Now, for those of you that may not know, Markup is a visual feedback tool that was built by Ceros. So that means whether you're working on a brand new Ceros experience, a website for a client, or even a proof of concept, you can upload that creative into Markup and begin adding comments instantaneously. And now, by supporting Ceros preview links, we've brought Markup and Ceros even closer together. Working on Ceros projects with Markup has enabled our customers to experience more connectivity and efficiency when it comes to creating and reviewing digital content. For seamless collaboration, you can now take any Ceros preview link and add it directly into Markup. And best of all, the real-time engine in Ceros also works in Markup, so changes can be seen instantly between both platforms. Additionally, our new screenshot functionality makes it even easier for teams to comment on and review digital content. These screenshots also make it incredibly simple for you to see exactly what has changed your Ceros experience over time. I cannot stress this one enough. Guest access to Markup projects makes it easy for everyone in the creative process to contribute. Whether you are on the sales, marketing, product team, it doesn't matter. Anyone across your organization can access a Markup project in seconds. Finally, we're excited to announce that Markup users can now upload and manage files within their projects. That is super helpful for sharing files when you're working remotely. That means fonts, images, videos, you name it. Storage is unlimited, and best of all, it is still completely free to use. That's it. Now back to you, Sai.
That's all we've got for you in terms of Release 7 and a quick update from Markup. But before we finish, I want to share one last thing with you. Earlier in the week, I was fortunate enough to catch up with Mark Cuban to discuss creativity and its critical importance in business. So Mark, look, appreciate you taking the time to spend a little bit of, give us a little bit of your energy. You're obviously a busy guy, so look, I massively appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here finally. I can't believe you waited all these years to invite me to come talk, man. I've been so jilted.
Well, I'll tell you what it is, man. You're the guy that says you have to hustle, right? And I've been hustling like crazy for 8 years. There's stuff that I want to ask you. So look, the first one I got for you is, this one's kind of grown up. This is about, because we're celebrating creativity and I'm academically terrible. I left school at 16. What would you say when you think about the education system is missing for those that don't think in that traditional way and want to make their way in the world?
Well, there's two things there, right? One, do you need the educational system or can you do it on your own? And two, if you're in the educational system, what can you get from it? And three, I guess, is the educational system structured the right way? The answer to the last one's easy. No, it's not. I mean, particularly secondary and college, look at college, it's all built around an accreditation system that's broken. It doesn't really, the people who do the accreditation, don't do it with any real foundation. It's just, they just take the legacy universities and organizations and continue to approve them. And we continue to see tuition go up and results go down. And so I think, typical schooling is ready to be disrupted. And I think you're starting to see that Google and others, upstart, have really put together programs. And I think employers like myself and you guys are starting to get to the point where you don't care if someone goes to an accredited university.
Doesn't matter to me at all.
Not even a little bit, right? We look for people who come from the smaller schools, because they're typically the untalented talents, right? Where you get people that are amazing, but because they couldn't afford to go to a big school, or maybe messed around in high school like you and I did, couldn't get into one of the big fancy schools, but they're incredible talents, creativity, whatever it may be. So I think that is ripe for disruption. And then in terms of what you should do, everybody's different. The biggest challenge, particularly if you're a teenager, 15, 16, 17, right? And I'm like, you don't have to know what you want to be when you grow up, right? You just have to be excited to learn. And where and how you learn is part of the process of growing up.
My mother-in-law once said to me, how do you do what you do? And I said, I got basic smarts and I'm really curious. And
yeah, that's it. You know what? If you love to learn, the greatest skill, Indiana had a big football win this weekend, so I got my Hoosiers gear on. But the greatest skill I learned when I went to Indiana University was learning how to learn, because the only constant is change. If you look back over the 8 years, for Ceros, I mean, look how much has changed in content management, right? And content display systems. And so there's just so much evolution that if you're not learning, somebody else is out there kicking your ass.
For sure. And
rapidly.
On that topic, actually, of Ceros, so 8-9 years ago, you gave us to us, which was a lot of money, maybe to you not quite, but it was in the earlier days. It was seed money, right? It wasn't a giant investment. Can you even remember when you were asked if you would make that investment, what you saw in us back then? And if you can remember, do you think you got it right?
I think I got it right. And what I remember was talking to Brian about a content management system, and Brian had made me money in his previous company. So, I tend to ride the horses that make me money. And so I was like, okay, does the world really need another CMS system? Maybe, maybe not, but he got the last one right, and who am I to mess with success? So I'm like, sure, let's go with it.
Yeah, and you didn't bank on it actually ending up only a couple of years later being run by an insane English guy.
Exactly right. I had no idea, but I mean, I know I played rugby for a long time, so I know a lot of insane English guys, so that's a positive.
Well, actually, on that note, that's a good one. For me, just to sort of take it a little bit broader for a second. So I'm an English guy, moved here 9-10 years ago, so I immigrated to this country. I think this country was born on that. What are your thoughts on the importance of embracing that diversity of thought from overseas?
No, I don't care where they come from, right? Overseas, domestic, we want the best and the brightest. I believe in American exceptionalism. You came here for a reason, right? You thought there was something here that would better enable you to reach your dreams and your goals than if you stayed in the UK, right? And that is what makes us different than most countries. You're not alone. That we are a destination for entrepreneurs. We're a destination for the creatives. We're a destination for academics. We're a destination for thinkers and dreamers and doers. Because I just read an article not long ago. What they said was, what really makes things different here than in Europe and the rest of the world is in America, we reward not just creativity, but the search for something better. We don't downplay when Simon goes out there or Mark or whoever comes into this country and has a dream and a goal. We encourage people to go for that goal. We reward them when we get there. We celebrate people who achieve those goals, and you don't see that in other countries.
Dude, you're so right. When I was raising money for Ceros, I remember it really well. In the UK, I would go in and pitch, and they were always looking for a reason to prove me wrong. And when I came out here, I felt I was amongst kindred spirits. But I remember I would pitch, and they were almost as excited about the idea as me, and they were looking for me to prove them wrong, as in like to not be the entrepreneur or not have the idea quite right. It was such a small nuanced difference, but it's so impactful to entrepreneurs.
I'm going to make it hard because I get pitched so many ideas, like on Shark Tank, right? I'm always looking for what's wrong. But once you go through the list of wrongs of how the difficulties, right? Yeah, like another CMS system is needed versus the upside. But if you make it so easy to use and allow people to be so creative that their businesses flourish and they can sell more, do more, etc., you have to always balance that. And to your point, overseas, you just don't get as much of that goal of success, right? It's more a job than a dream or a vision. And that's the difference.
Yeah, and actually right now, I mean, that's a good topic for me as well, is that the misconception is that creativity is reserved for those of the arts, right? It's like it's for the artists in this world.
No, man, that's true, yeah. Look, everybody's creative in their own way. It's just a matter of finding what it is and then determining if you're any good at it, right? I mean, I used to write software, and some of the most creative discussions come from programmers trying to figure out the best way to get something done efficiently, right? At the least cost and to minimize resource utilization. I mean, you got to be creative. It's not about painting pictures or, playing a musical instrument and being creative in that way. We all have the left side of our brain, the right side of our brain. And when you can mesh the two together, I mean, look at Steve Jobs. He said everything's a remix, and every entrepreneur has a creative element to them, right? Because you have to have a vision, and as a business person, trying to take that vision, mesh it with the goals of the people that work for you, mesh it with the marketplace, and make all those pieces work together takes a lot of creativity. If you find yourself, I mean, look, businesses don't succeed by doing things the way everybody else did them. You succeed by, creating your own path. And that's the ultimate in creativity. And what's even greater about creativity in business, there's always someone trying to kick your ass. So you have to be continuously creative. Like you said, you're always looking for something new, right? You're always looking for new ways to do things. That's what you have to do with business. And that's the ultimate creativity. Because once you put that painting up or finish that song, there it is. And then you think of the next one. But once you make a design decision, for the product, or you make a business or a marketing decision, it's never over, right? You have to continually iterate and reiterate, and that takes a lot of creativity, and people don't realize that.
And right now, this is the thing, right? Is that the world is upside down. I mean, literally, up is down, down is up. It is an absolute, where are we? We've got a pandemic globally. We have a civil unrest in this country to some degree. Economic crisis here or looming. Means now's the time to break the rules and do things differently, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. Look, when we look back in 20 years, there's going to be 5, 10, 20, 50 100 world-class companies created specifically because during the pandemic, someone said, shit, this sucks. I can do better, right? This is an opportunity because I see all these other companies, not able to survive, unfortunately, but, reality, and that creates opportunity. It's, they call it creative destruction. We went from, my dad listened to 78 LPs then we went to albums, then we went to CDs, then we went to downloads, then we went to streaming, and who knows what's next, but there's a path. When there's change, there's opportunity. And if you just get caught up in, oh shit, this is a mess, that's all you're going to get to, right?
I was saying to my team when we went into this, like, we're going to survive, guys, but we're also going to thrive, and we're going to be creative about how we do it, because we can't just sit in a cave and wait for the winter to pass, because when we come out, we'll be weak and frail, right? So we got to be really clever about how we use it. So
hibernation does not work in business.
All right. So next up, I got for you one of the grown-up questions, the cheeky one, around running for president. Got to mention that one. You're like, oh, here we go. But I want to ask you a slightly different angle on it, right? Which is, okay, I know you didn't do it because of your family, and I actually have a deep respect for that, because I think if you don't respect and love your family, what have you got? If you had have run and the family had seen it a different way, what would you do in your first year in office? What would be number one, day one? What are you going to do?
First thing, be honest, be authentic, communicate, talk to people, listen to them. Right? Because right now, with the pandemic, we don't know who to trust with our lives. And that scares us more than anything else. And that's at the foundation of many of the problems that we're having financially. You don't know who to trust, and there's no leadership. And so the first thing you do is offer leadership and offer compassion and offer an ear. And then you work from there, and you try to come up with a plan that hopefully, even though you're not going to end a virus, but hopefully it gets us to a vaccine. And I think we're going in the right direction there. But brings in scientists, and you will listen to them. And I think part of the challenge in us listening to the scientists was that there was nobody there to explain how science works. Science doesn't just walk in and say, here's your solution, bam, that's it. We're not going to talk about it anymore, right? Science is a process where you test and challenge and, recreate, and then hope you find a solution. And then every time you do that, you learn a little bit more and hopefully make a little bit of progress. Because obviously what we knew in January, we know a whole lot more now. And we've got all these politics playing into it where it's like, well, what you said in January is just as applicable today as when no, that's ridiculous. But unless there's somebody there who's authentic, honest, transparent, at least to a certain extent, as much as a president can be, and is willing to listen and be, compassionate, show leadership, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, talking of compassion, the recent event which caught a lot of eyes with Delonte West, very interesting situation there. It touched me a little, I saw it, and I just wondered if you had any way of digging in and going, would the Mark Cuban of 20 years of age done that? And if not, what made the Mark Cuban of some number above 50?
Yeah, right. 20-year-old, probably not. Probably 20, 30, 40, still on my mission, right? Still on my grind. And so I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and pretend and no, this is the way I've been my entire life. And, I've always had this soft spot. No, that's not the case at all. I was always go, 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 go with my blinders on and just about, getting to my next goal. But, with a little bit of age comes a little bit of wisdom and a little bit of empathy and, just a change of life circumstances. And I don't want to make it seem like, this was some big project and, it wasn't. I saw pictures of Delonte West, for those who don't know, who used to play for the Mavs, was an NBA player, and he was panhandling 2.5 miles from my house. And so I drove around and looked for him. And when I didn't find him, I found his mom's number. His mom gave me a phone number for him. I kept trying to call him, saying, D, call me back, call me back. He finally did. And I was like, don't move. And so I went and got him. And for better or worse, somebody caught me on camera. And the crazy part was, I think it was a drug dealer, because there was a whole lot of them where I found him. And Next thing I know, I'm getting calls because it was on TMZ. But that wasn't the mission, obviously. And the better part of the story is, with Delante's mom's help, we've got him in rehab now, and he's got a good life that he hopefully sticks to. I think he'll win the rehab battle, but he's also got mental health issues, so hopefully he sticks that side of it out as well.
That's just like you say, not done for that reason, but done nonetheless, and the result's great. So that's epic.
Yeah, that's from memory.
The other thing that's been cracking around in my brain recently is related to creativity, and the fact that coming up with creative solutions to problems is important. And I think leadership from America needs to be, that needs to happen. You need to see it on the world stage. And I just wondered if you had anything you wanted to say specifically around AI, but also just the kind of new sphere, because I think if we want to dominate going forward and continue to be the powerful influence positively in the industry, in the world, what are your thoughts on where we should be, what we should be doing there?
We need a national strategy on AI. We need a national strategy on robotics. We need a national strategy on innovation in medicine. We need a national strategy, across the board for new technologies that we don't have right now. But the reality is, whoever wins AI dominates the world. Period. End of story. And we do well in AI right now, but under the foundation of AI is research and development and innovation, and we're not supporting that or organizing that as much as we need to. We're not looking at it when we talk about breaking up the big tech companies. Well, the reality, our strongest AI technology comes from those top 10 tech companies that do AI really well. So if you break them up without having a national AI strategy or technology strategy, you're effectively emasculating our AI capabilities in this country. And then there's the question, do we need to be the dominant country? China's always been a fast follower, and it's working for them. We've always been the innovators, and it's worked for us. But we've got to be one or the other.
Yeah, you can't lag behind and then just shrug your shoulders and say, maybe it'll be fine, because
we're the UK of the last 100 years,
Yes. Thanks for that, Mark. The once dominant nation. Dear. Anyway, look, we're getting close now to the end, but two last things really quick, take a couple of minutes. Number one, based on listening to you speak, I want a Zoom call with your family. I'm going to pitch them on why you should be president. So we set that up as a separate Zoom.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
And then the last thing was just, if you could give anyone watching this that are facing the adversity and constraints of what we're seeing in the world today, and creativity plays a part, grit, grind, what would you say to those people? What would the last piece of advice, the single piece of advice you would give them be?
Same thing I say to my kids and my friends. All of us have that super creative idea in front of us, inside of us, that we get really, really excited about, right? We've all had that idea. You get that butterflies feeling in your stomach, right? You get all amped up. You go on Google and you look to see if there's anything like it, or you talk to your friends, or you start to draw it out there, or get in front of your piano or whatever, and you start to play it out, and then something stops you. And when you get to that something that stops you, I want you to ask yourself one question. Why not me?
Sage words as always, Mr. Cuban. So, Mark, I really appreciate it. You're a legend. Thank you so much for taking the time, pal. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you for keeping me in. Thank you for all you've accomplished. My bank account thanks you, but more importantly, I thank you. You guys just keeping on grinding for 8 years. That's not a minor accomplishment. That's a major accomplishment that 99.99% of businesses never see. So well done.
Dude, you made my day. You just made me and the team at Ceros very proud. Anyway, mate, I'll let you go because you're a busy man. Thank you.
Simon. Thanks, everybody. Well done. Congrats.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Cheers, mate. Bye. So that's it, folks. That's all we've got for you today. I hope, like I promised at the beginning of the day, you're leaving feeling a little more inspired, a little more educated, and hopefully, thanks to Release 7, more empowered. Until next time, see you soon.
When you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and you're your life is just to live your life inside the world, try not to bash into the walls too much, try to have a nice family life, have fun, save a little money. But life, that's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it, you can influence it, you can build your own things that other people can use. And the minute that you understand that you can poke life and actually something will, if you push in, something will pop out the other side, that you can change it, you can mold it. That's maybe the most important thing, is to shake off this erroneous notion that life is there and you're just going to live in it, versus embrace it, change it, improve it, make your mark upon it. I think that's very important. And however you learn that, once you learn it, you'll want to change life and make it better, because it's kind of messed up in a lot of ways. Once you learn that, you'll never be the same again.